To go ahead and get started. Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the annual Newton North High School Transitioning Together retreat. We are so happy to have mentors and mentees here with us for a fun day of activities and presentations. We sure do have a lot packed into a short amount of time today, but we hope that you'll get a lot out of it. During the course of the day, we'll have 5 different sessions. You'll spend some time getting to know one another. You'll go on a virtual campus tour of Brandeis. You'll learn about financial aid and paying for college. And you'll hear from a student panel of what it's actually like to be a first-generation college student. We think you'll get a lot out of these sessions and leave today feeling confident and excited about what the next year is going to bring for you all. Just a few housekeeping things before we officially begin. First is that if everybody could plan to keep their cameras on for the duration of the retreat, it would be really greatly appreciated. This will help us all feel a little bit more connected since we are through a screen today. So if you could please make some adjustments and do that, we would all really appreciate it. Secondly, at 11:45 a.m., we will be taking a break for lunch. All the mentees should have received an Uber Eats voucher in your email. So please order something yummy for yourself for lunch, and make sure that if you haven't already, I know we sent some texts, but if you haven't already, please make sure that you have placed your order. So it arrives at 11:45 when we break for lunch, and we'll have about an hour for lunch. And then lastly, I just want to extend a huge thank you to Brandeis University and the team there for hosting us again today. We are so thankful for your time, energy, and expertise. And I'd like to extend a special thank you to Alexa Cole for all of her hospitality, responsiveness, and flexibility in planning this day. I know I sent a ton of emails, so I really appreciate all your communication. All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started. And we are going to open the program today by setting the tone with some very special welcomes from our amazing community leaders. So first, to kick us off, I would like to introduce the Mayor of Newton, Mayor Ruth Ann Fuller.
As everybody else struggle with that unmute button, you would think so many years in, we'd be masters at it. Hey, good morning, everybody. Oh, shucks, we're still not in person and together, but we're getting our way through. First, thanks to Jill and Melissa and Jennifer, and certainly with the support of Henry Turner and David Fleishman and all the teachers at Newton North. This is so darn important, and you do it so beautifully. And a second huge thank you to our community members who are stepping up to really be part of a student's life and helping. I think of it as a foreign language, really. It's so darn complicated, this whole world of choices. The admissions process, much less the financial aid and scholarship process, it's just hard and complicated. And it's to have somebody help one-on-one is just beautiful. Thank you. But let me just talk directly to the students. To raise your hand and say, I want to be part of this journey. I want to work closely with NPS and with someone else to figure out what's right for me. Bravo to you for having the courage to do it, because even just taking that step forward is very courageous. I know you're joining, I think if I have the data right, 265 other Newton North students have led the way, and every single one of them has gotten into college. So this works. And I know this feels like it's figuring out where you want to go to college or university, but I just say it's really about figuring out who you are. How do you thrive? what type of environment would be best for you? What can you imagine about yourself for your next decade in life, and this next 4 years being a step along that journey? So it's as much about introspection and bouncing ideas off of parents and guardians and your friends and your teachers and your mentor and saying, here's what I'm thinking. And please know our journeys can change. What you're thinking today may be a little bit different from 3 months from now and likely 3 years from now. And that's okay and good. And bravo to you for being part of this. And thank you to everybody involved with T2.
Thank you, Mayor Fuller. I would like to now turn it over to David Fleishman, who is the Superintendent of Newton Public Schools.
Great. Good morning, everybody. First of all, I hope next year we are in person, because I love going over to Brandeis for this event. But I'm glad we're able to do it over Zoom. And I just want to thank you, Jillian and Melissa, for all the terrific work you do on Tsquared, which is now a Newton institution and something we're incredibly proud of. I was thinking about Tsquared. I think of Tsquared all the time. I was reading an article last week in the New York Times about how sometimes students who are highly qualified to go to college, like all of you, and students who are first generation students who may not have a family member who went to college, and as a result, students are not filling out FAFSA forms. And as a result, they're not going to colleges the way they should in terms of, accessibility. And I so thought about that in terms of Tsquared, because all of you are so well prepared because of your work at Newton North to be successful. And where a lot of high schools fall short, and I think we used to fall short, is that we didn't provide the support for all students that we could have. And that's where I think it's our mentors and the Tsquared program ensures that all of you will be able to, that is the way it should be for all students. And I was thinking that, I hope for all of you, when you learn about this college process, that someday you go back and be mentors in programs like Tsquared, because that article told me that all students across the country should have access to Tsquared. And that's something we need to think more about, is how do we expand this model program? But I think it's for all of you, as you think about going to college, some of you might have a little more time in your hands. And how do you begin to be a mentor when you go to college? Because there are so many mentoring opportunities wherever you are. And it's a wonderful way to build connections and meet people. And I've had wonderful conversations with Tsquared mentors about the power of their work and influence on you. And I would then turn around and say, how can you be like your mentors in working with middle school students? You'll find that every college has volunteer opportunities, but sometimes they're not easy to take advantage of. And I think you all have the power, because of who you are, to mentor students in really meaningful ways. So that's the first kind of challenge to you. And the next challenge is to think about, how do you keep learning and growing as we think about the pandemic, and how you're able to support others, because the last couple of years have been so hard. And yet at the same time, I think we need to build connection more than ever, which is another reason why Tsquared is so powerful, because the power of connection is something we've lost. And I think Tsquared has figured out how to maintain connections during the pandemic. I mean, that's what we're doing right now. And I think for all of you, how do you stay connected? Because a big part of your success is that you've been able to access support and help. And I guess my next message is think about all the people that have helped you during high school. And that's what Tsquared is about. And so how do you continue to get support and ask for support when you go to college and take advantage of programs? And that's lesson number 2, is not only how do you help and learn from your mentors, but how do you continue to ask and find people that can help you in your life? And that is a lifelong journey for all of us. I still ask people for help this morning. I was asking some people for help because I was stuck. And I think for all of you, you will be successful when you go ask for support and help, because you've already shown that when you get help, you can be incredibly successful. And for that, we're all proud of you. You have such great potential, and keep up the terrific work. And thanks again for our mentors for being so flexible during this unique time.
Thank you so much for your words. I would now like to turn it over to Newton North High School Principal, Dr. Henry Turner.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. Thank you to our extraordinary Tsquared crew, who is really the A team in college and career counseling. We are just so blessed to have this team. And I agree with Mayor Fuller and Dr. Fleishman that I wish that we were at Brandeis. That it really is an amazing day to be on campus, for you to see the experience of a college campus. I am hopeful that this spring and certainly next year, you will have the opportunity to go visit college campuses, and that you'll get the experience that was a little bit hard to do earlier for the previous cohort. I also want to just say that a big thank you to our mentors. Having been able to speak at the mentor recruitment sessions, you are doing yeoman's work. I always say that this is going to be far more rewarding than when it was with your own children through their process. And I think that you will you really form a great bond with these incredible students. It just so happened that Denise Kremen is popped up onto my screen, and it's just a great connection that our faculty are volunteering for this. This is, I believe, the 2nd year in a row that we have faculty. I've also, I guess we could say 4th year in a row, because I've been a mentor as well. But it's just a great community experience. And that community is really run by Jen, Melissa, and Jillian. I'm reminded of our celebration in 2020, our graduation celebration, in which they got pizza delivered to each of the families' homes, so that you could have a pizza party at your house while we were having a Zoom graduation. So that is just really speaks to the community that is here. And finally, I just want to echo that you are ready. You are in a really special program where 100% of students go on to college. And so know that the expectation of you is high, the support for you is there, and that we are really excited to see where you go. I'm reminded of a story of a student or a recent alum who came back to our Dover Legacy Scholars alumni panel this December, in which she talked about imposter syndrome, being in college at a large university where she felt that is she as good as the people who are going on campus with her? And she was taking a statistics course in a large lecture hall, and again, she was worried, am I going to be as good as these students? And she is a woman of color, both dealing with stereotypes of not being as good in STEM. And so she was dealing with that kind of pressure against those stereotypes. And what she found herself was actually tutoring some white male students in her class. And she was reflecting on, it was the amazing math department that helped her to get there, but also the empowerment that staff put her in throughout her years at Newton North. And so it's both that academic preparedness, but it's also the social and social justice preparedness that we do well at Newton North to put you in a place where you're going to do great. And you're going to overcome any sense of imposter feelings that you have when you're in college. And so really know that you are at the right place, that it's amazing that you are overcoming this concept of being a first-gen college-bound student, and that we really are here to be with you, to support you along the way, and know that you are going to excel and be extraordinary leaders as you walk onto campus next in 2 years or a year and a half. So with that, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll pass it back to Ms. Hall.
Thank you very much, Dr. Turner. And now I would like to introduce the Newton North High School Transitioning Together Director, our fearless leader, Miss Melissa Hannenberger.
Thank you, Jillian, and thank you, Mayor Fuller, Superintendent Fleishman, and Principal Turner for opening up this day in such a magnificent way. On behalf of the entire Tsquared team, I would like to welcome you all to our 8th annual Transitioning Together retreat for the class of 2023, hosted today by the admissions team at Brandeis University. From what started as a small group of 13 students and their mentors back in 2013, we've now grown over the past 9 years to, as Mayor Fuller mentioned, 265 mentor-mentee matches, with 100% of our first generation mentees who applied to college having been accepted to at least one college. The fact that everyone here on this Zoom today values social justice and believes that every single member of our community deserves equitable opportunities, that is the key to what inspires us and the strength and amazing success of this program. Every high school student deserves access to go to college, and this is made possible with the wonderful support and relationships with members of our community. Transitioning together is now more important than ever, and I want to thank all of you for being part of our program this year. Before I turn the day over to Brandeis, I would like to start with a huge thank you to Jillian Hall, our Tsquared Programming Director, and Alexa Cole, Assistant Director of Admissions, for coordinating today's events with the entire admissions team at Brandeis. We are all so excited to be with you today and thank each and every one of you for your support of the important work that we do for our community members, each and every one of them. So now I'd like to formally turn over the program to Jennifer Walker, Brandeis University's Dean of Admissions and Financial Aid. Welcome, Jennifer.
Thank you, Melissa. And thank you, everyone. You know, Brandeis is thrilled to have you. Some of us actually are at Brandeis right now, and we hope that you all will be physically with us next year. I've done an intro to this program for quite a few years now, and so to just sort of see it grow up, so to speak, is really exciting. I will say I have done the least to make this happen, so I'm excited to say hi to you all, but thank you so much to everyone who has organized the day. I just show up and say some words, and then everyone else is doing the really hard work. So first of all, you were all fabulous. So thank you all for being you. And I'm talking both to the students and to the mentors, right? So thank you, students, for valuing education. I'm sort of starting where I ended last year. It is education, you know, on my soapbox here, is so important. And it's something that people can't take it away from you. Once you have it, it's yours and no one can take it away from you. And the mentors, thank you all for giving your time to a process that, as you heard the mayor say, can feel complicated. And what we want to do is make it as uncomplicated as possible. So students, this is not a scavenger hunt. There is no one right answer. There are lots of right answers. It's like the best test ever. There's lots of right answers. You're all going to go to college. So everybody wins. Everyone has done the right thing. Take the pressure off yourself for finding the right place and find a bunch of wonderful places where you will get an education. That is first and foremost the most important. Find a place that is your community. You're clearly used to a community that values serving others. So we're a part of a program right now that values serving your community. And it's so apropos that you do this with Brandeis. When we read applications, we are looking for students who engage with their community. However you define your community, could be your school, could be your church, could be your family, could be your neighborhood. But that giving back, right? It's at the ethos and the core of what our university is. So it makes so much sense that this program kind of kicks off here, and it is really important. I want to encourage the students to ask questions. So like, it's okay to not know what's going on. Just ask the questions. I want to echo that financial aid is super confusing, not the getting it, the applying for it. There's lots of questions to answer. It's okay to feel confused. Just keep trying to get the paperwork in. You will get there. It'll be fine. And then I want to echo one of the sentiments from the earlier speaker, which is to say this is a journey. And to the degree that you can make it a fun journey, a journey where we learn, I would say lean into that. There's going to be parts in your journey that are hard. There's going to be parts that are fun. There's going to be parts that are easy, anxiety provoking. You're going to go through all the emotions. It's all normal. It's all okay. And actually, when it's all over, it will be okay. So I know you don't know the outcome of this, but what we do know with 100% admit rate is you are students, you're all going to go to college. And so I feel confident saying to you all, it's all going to be okay. And if I look at the adults and mentors, right, faculty, folks in the public sector here today, it's also all going to be okay for us in our world, because these students are going to go to college and they're going to move on to be our next leaders out in the world, and the world needs that. So I wish you all a very fruitful and enjoyable journey. Thank you so much for picking sort of Brandeis as part of your community to kick this off. And I wish all of you a lot of luck. Use our admission counselors as a resource. I get to work with a wonderful team. And I know that you're going to have a really nice time with them all. So thank you all. Good luck with the journey and have a wonderful program.
Thank you so much. I love those words. It is all going to be okay. And I love it. So thank you all to our amazing speakers for kicking off the day so well. Without further ado now, I am going to hand it off to Shaquan McDowell, who is the Brandeis University Assistant Director of Admissions. And he is going to work with you all through a mentor-mentee team building activity. 45. For all of our mentors and mentees, if you wouldn't mind turning your cameras on so we know you're here and ready to engage, that would be great. And we do have, as you can probably see on the screen, we have Miss Amy Herbold here, who's the Associate Director of Financial Aid at Brandeis, to give us all an introduction to the financial aid process. I think you all will get a lot out of this session. I know last year this was very popular and people were very excited to hear about financial aid. So we're really thankful that you are back here again with us, Amy. So we will have Amy with us until about 1:15, and then we will be heading into a student panel. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to you, Amy. Thanks so much.
All right, thank you. It's lovely to see all of you here. I hope you've had a great day so far. I just wanted to give you a quick run through of what you can expect as you delve into the world of financial aid. Trying to figure out how to see you and do this at the same time. Always a trick, right? Please just jump in if you need anything.
Yeah, and Amy, I will monitor the chat and any hand raising, so I can just politely interrupt you if you
Perfect.
don't.
That's perfect. It may feel a little like a lot of information in a short period of time, but I want to make sure we have a little bit of time for your questions. So also my email address is here. If any of you want to reach out with, all of our situations are very different and totally get that. So if you want to reach out after the fact or next week, please feel free to do that. I'm always happy to answer questions as well as I can. Okay, so our topics today: finding out about types and sources of financial aid, reviewing the application process, understanding how financial aid decisions are made, and finally learning about paying for college. So first we'll talk about types and sources of aid. There's really three main types. The first one is the one we all love the most. Those are grants and scholarships. So grants, scholarships, this is gift aid that does not need to be repaid. Another type of aid would be federal or institutional work study. So you may get an allowance in your financial aid package that essentially gives you an opportunity to work on campus. You do need to actually work hours in order to receive a weekly paycheck. So keep that in mind when you see that as a line item on your aid package. That's not money that's given to you up front. You actually have to work for those funds. Finally, the third main type of aid would be federal student loans or student loans in general. When we're talking about especially grants and scholarships, there's two main kinds of grants and scholarships. First, we have merit-based aid. So a merit scholarship is just what it sounds like. It's based on something meritorious about you. Maybe it's academic or athletic or musical or leadership related or community service related. These are all categories upon which merit-based decisions are made by institutions. They're things you want to watch out for. They might have renewal requirements or they might not be renewable. So when you get an aid package, you want to understand if that scholarship you've been offered is guaranteed to you for 4 years. Do you need to maintain a certain GPA in order to keep that merit scholarship? Is it a one-year award? These are things that you definitely want to pay attention to. Some schools will require a separate application. I feel like that's fewer and farther between at this point, but you definitely just want to understand at the schools at which you're applying what their procedure might be for applying for merit. And those application deadlines might be fairly early in the season. In addition to merit-based aid, you may also qualify for what's called need-based financial aid. This is less subject, what I always get these two confused. This is not objective like merit. So you might have 5 people who are all meritorious in various ways. This is a more subjective process. It's a little more black and white. You would submit an application. People like me would be taking a look at that using a standardized formula to determine how much aid you might qualify for. Need-based aid can include grants, loans, and work study, and oftentimes in order to retain it, you need to be making satisfactory academic progress. All that means, that's just a fancy way of saying you need to be passing your courses and making progress toward your degree requirements. Sources of financial aid can vary, and you want to make sure that you're looking into all sources. So first we have the federal government, Pell Grant, federal work study, subsidized and unsubsidized Stafford loans. We'll talk more about those in a moment. There are also tax incentives for you and or your parents. The state, so the state of Massachusetts also has grants and scholarships, tuition waivers to certain schools, and even a loan program, which is pretty cool. I think we're one of the only states to have an educational loan program in the no interest loan. The college and university is going to be a major source of support for you in terms of merit scholarships and or need-based grants. So you want to make sure that you're exploring all of those possibilities. Finally, there are outside entities, outside scholarships. You know, does your family belong to a church or a synagogue that might offer funding? What about your town? What about the Rotary Club? You know, all of the clubs and sports and activities that you take part in could be sources of aid. Also take a look at your parents' employers. Sometimes there are employer paid benefits that can be useful to students. Moving on to the application process. So the first thing, which I'm sure you've already heard of, is the FAFSA. This is the free application for federal student aid. All colleges are going to require this from you. It has been available since October 1st. So if you have filed it, great. If you have not filed it, still plenty of time to get that done. On that form, you're going to report 2020 income, and current asset information for both you and your parents. If your parents are married or residing at the same address, you would report both parents' information on the FAFSA. If your biological parents are divorced or separated, you would report only the information for your custodial parent. So a lot of students say, what does that mean, custodial or non-custodial? Essentially, custodial means the parent with whom you reside with more than 50% of the year. If you're like, actually, I reside exactly half with each parent, then it's typically the parent that provides more financial support for you. The other application that you will run into is called the CSS Profile. This one would be required by some colleges and universities, but not all. We at Brandeis do require this form. It's essentially the FAFSA with even more questions. So we're just trying to get an even better idea of your family's financial strength. It's free for domestic undergraduates who have family income up to $100,000. This is a fairly new thing. Every student used to have to pay about $25 for that first school and $16 for each additional, but the College Board has recently expanded their fee waiver process. So this is great. This has also been available since October 1st. And in this case, you do the same thing on the profile where you would report only your custodial parents' information if your parents are divorced. However, unlike the FAFSA, if your parents are divorced, we would require another profile from your non-custodial parent. So the other parent will also need to complete a separate application. If there are special circumstances regarding your non-custodial parent that you want to bring to our attention, you're unable to get that information from them for one reason or another, there is a process. It's generally called a non-custodial parent waiver petition. The College Board, who owns the CSS Profile, has a form, and each school may also have a form that you can complete if you want us to consider waiving your non-custodial parents' information. So once you do the applications, how do we actually make financial aid decisions? The first thing to understand is how the cost of attendance works. So the cost of attendance is essentially your total expenses for 1 year of college. If you look here, the items in blue, those are items that would be directly billed to you, such as tuition and fees, room and board if you live on campus. The ones in yellow, books and supplies, transportation, miscellaneous, these are indirect expenses. So there's still expenses that we expect a student to incur for a year of college, but we're not actually going to bill you $400 for a plane ticket to get to Brandeis if you live somewhere else, right? And I know all of you are local, so that's irrelevant. But we're not actually billing you for those charges, but we still want to include them in our calculation for your aid eligibility because we know you'll be spending money on these things also. So once we have the cost of attendance, the other crucial piece that we are figuring out from your application is what is your family's expected contribution? This is a calculated amount based on that formula that a family is expected to be able to contribute for 1 year of college costs. A lot of families say, how do we do this? How do you expect us to pay that amount? Keep in mind that this isn't, we looked through everything and we've decided that you have this much money, that you can just put down on the table, no problem. This is your family's ability to absorb the cost of education using past savings, current income, and at times future borrowing. So you want to make sure that you understand this isn't an arbitrary number. It is something that is calculated and considered to be the amount that a family can absorb over time. The FAFSA is used to determine eligibility for any federal and most state funds. And then the profile we use to determine how much of our own institutional grant or scholarship we can offer a student. If you have a sibling who's also enrolled as an undergraduate, this is a good thing in terms of your aid eligibility. rough thing because now your family has 2 tuition bills, but it can be helpful in reducing your parents' contribution because there is an expectation that a parent needs to be able to contribute to any and all undergraduates in the household. So we have our cost of attendance, we subtract your family's estimated contribution, and what we're left with is financial aid eligibility. And the best way that I can explain the next piece is for you to think of like a barrel or a bucket. So what we do here is the first thing in the bucket is always your family's expected contribution. So that one goes in the bottom of the bucket. After that, the aid office can start to offer aid to get you closer to that cost of attendance. So that might be in the form of a merit scholarship, a need-based grant, a student loan, or work study. The important thing to know is that at Brandeis, we're meeting full calculated financial need with a combination of all of these items. At other institutions, there may be a thing called unmet need. And essentially is exactly what it sounds like. It's here's your EFC, here's the aid we're able to offer, here's the cost of attendance, and then there's this gap. That gap is called unmet need. And what's important for you to know is that your family is responsible for any unmet need as well as your estimated contribution. A little bit about aid at Brandeis. This current academic year, we've awarded over $66 million in merit and need-based grants, which is a lot of money. We do an awesome job here at Brandeis at supporting our students. It's something we take a lot of pride in doing. About 60% of our students received some form of aid, whether it was a scholarship, a grant, a federal loan, student employment. We also have a fairly robust system for emergency funds available for technology needs, laptops, sometimes textbooks. We assist students with the cost of health insurance through the university. There's a lot of incidentals that we understand aren't always part of the basic average cost of attendance. One thing you definitely want to know about are net price calculators. So each school on their website will have some kind of net price calculator, and it's exactly what it sounds like. It's to help you get at least a ballpark figure on what might be expected from your family. You should absolutely use these. You should also take them with a grain of salt. They are not able to they're not sophisticated enough to figure out the ins and outs of every single situation, but they're by and large fairly helpful. Then we come down to pay. Oh, I'm sorry, Jillian, was there a question?
Yeah, we have a few in the chat.
Yeah.
So I'll just ask these now because most of these are about applying for aid.
Okay.
So the first one is, if the parents of a student are not US citizens, but are residing in the US under a temporary work visa, would the students still complete the FAFSA, and would they be eligible for federal financial aid?
Great question. So if the student is a US citizen, then yes, absolutely. You should fill out the FAFSA. When it asks for your parents' social security numbers, you should put all zeros, and that will allow the form to go through.
Okay, what about if the student is not a US citizen?
So if you're not a US citizen, then you would be applying to an institution as an international or out of status undocumented student. In that case, you would most likely be doing just the profile, and feel free to reach out to the institution directly for more guidance.
Thank you. And then we have another question from a student. What if you can't apply for the FAFSA or the CSS profile? Is there another financial aid requirement?
I guess I would want to know why you can't apply for those items, like what the reasons are, so that we could help with that. Beyond that, if you don't complete an aid application at Brandeis, you would simply be considered for merit, and that is all.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so let's move on to paying for college. So we'll start by talking a little bit about the federal student loans. In this case, the student loans are derived from your eligibility on the FAFSA. So you do have to be a US citizen to qualify for these loans. We certainly understand there are students not in that situation. for these federal loans, the student is the sole borrower. There's no credit check, and they come in two forms, subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized has the word subsidy in it, so it essentially means that the government is picking up the interest while you're in school. They're just not charging you interest while you're in school. Once you cease to become enrolled at least half time, which is typically graduation, could also be a withdrawal. That loan would go into a 6-month grace period and then into repayment. The unsubsidized portion of the loan, if you choose to take that portion, has the exact same interest rate, all of the same terms, except that interest is accumulating from the moment it's dispersed to your student account. You can see over on the right the annual loan limits. So for a first-year student, $5,500 is the maximum, of which $3,500 can be subsidized. So if a first-year student were taking advantage of all of their federal loan eligibility, they would be borrowing $3,500 in subsidized loan and $2,000 in unsubsidized. The interest rates are lower than what you'd find out on the private market. This year it was 3.73. And then there's a lot of benefits associated with these loans. If you are thinking about going to graduate school someday, the great part about a subsidized loan is the subsidy will kick back in once you're enrolled at least half time as a grad student. In terms of repayment, you have a ton of options available to you. Some of them are tied to your income. So there's something called income-based repayment, where you would document to your servicer, this is how much I make, and then they would cap your payments at a certain portion of your income if you were unable to make a standard repayment amount. If you borrowed the subsidized portion of your loan over 4 years, you might incur about $27,000 in debt, and that would turn into about $300 a month for 10 years under standard repayment. Just keeping those in mind. Other loans and financing options, many schools will have a payment plan. So at Brandeis, we have one. It's an awesome thing because instead of making one lump sum fall and one lump sum spring payment, families can choose to divide whatever amount they feel like they can afford over 4 to 5 months. So I have a lot of families who are like, we'll need to borrow, but we don't need to borrow all of it. Great, set up a payment plan for however much you think you can do each month, and then do a loan for the rest. That can be an option for a family. The Parent Plus loan is another option. That's a federal loan in your parent's name. And then you can also visit elm1.com to find some private loan options. Most private loans, not most, all private loans are going to require that you have a creditworthy cosigner. So lastly, where do you go for help? What if your situation has changed since 2020? Because no one's situation has changed since 2020. I know that's for sure. Literally everyone's situation has changed. And what if you have an emergency need? So as those things come up, you really need to be talking to the financial aid office. We don't know what's going on until you tell us. So learn about your aid, figure out what the renewability criteria are. If you have outside scholarships coming in, ask the question, how does this impact the aid that you've offered me? If I'm bringing a $5,000 scholarship in from the Rotary Club, does that change anything about the rest of my aid? Has there been a change in your family's circumstances? Can I appeal my award? Absolutely, you can do those things. So reach out to the aid office, look for the appeal form out on the website, attend sessions like this to get as much information as you can, schedule a Zoom or a phone call with a financial aid counselor. Any of those things will be super helpful so that we can really understand your particular situation and help you make the best decisions going forward. And that's all I have. Super fast because I wanted some time for questions.
Thank you. So we do have another question in the chat. What is the federal interest rate after the first year usually?
So it doesn't change dramatically after the first year. It is reassessed by the federal government each year. So that interest rate is not just for first year students, that's for all students for that academic year borrowing. So it was actually in the 2s the year before because of COVID, and then it went up to 3.73 It's usually between like 2 and 6%, I'd say, in the last 10 years.
Thank you.
Anything else?
We do have
Elm 1, yeah. Yes, Elm 1, O-N-E. You almost had it, so close. Our website is a wealth of information. If you just go to it'd be brandeis.edu/SFS, like student financial services. And then that will lead you into a lot of web pages that will link you to all of this information and help give you more resources.
I did have it was a follow-up. I got a private message, a follow-up to the question about if you can't apply for FAFSA or the CSS profile, and the reason as to why is because the student does not have a social security number yet.
Okay.
So is there anything else that can be done, basically, is the question.
Yeah. I think, again, reaching out to the counselor, because we'd like to know where you are in that process. It just, there's a lot of statuses that have different timeframes. So we'd like to understand where you are in that process so that we can advise you. The profile, you don't need a social security number to do the profile. Our international students do profiles.
So it sounds like that will be a school by school basis as to how they will handle basically like the timing or your current status.
Yeah, it would definitely be in touch with the schools to get the best possible advice from them.
Okay. Perfect.
I do see about some unsubsidized loan warning students about compound interest. I absolutely hear what you're saying. However, if a student would be borrowing anyway, so if a student needed more than that 2,000 and they'd have to borrow on the private side of things, I would still recommend the unsubsidized loan first. So I would always encourage a student to utilize all forms of federal aid before going into the private loan arena, simply because of all of those repayment options, deferments, forbearance, public service loan forgiveness, which we didn't really talk about. And also, even these are small amounts. So it's 1,000 per term is the maximum amount of unsubsidized loan if a student also qualifies for sub. So we're talking very small amounts of interest. So while yes, it's compounding, this isn't a $70,000 loan compounding. Okay. It looks like the next question is, when do students find out about their financial aid package? Generally, yes, with their admission decision, usually within a week of the admission decision. And that's typically at Brandeis mid-March. So on the unsubsidized loans, while they're in school, they do not have to make payments on that unsubsidized loan. That will be rolled into their standard repayment later. Yeah. Can you speak to the implications about financial aid when a student wants to apply ED somewhere? So ED, yes, if you're applying ED, you're limiting your ability to compare financial aid award letters. And that for any student for whom finances are a major factor, I think is a really difficult thing. You're putting all your eggs in one basket, right? And you don't have you're not leaving yourself a lot of room for error there. So I would just be careful with that. Most ED contracts will have a clause that says, if you're not able to make this work for financial reasons, we will release you from the contract. But in my experience, that's sort of a painful road, right? Like you've applied ED, you're in love with the school, and then you can't go because of the finances. Personally, from a purely financial aid position, I would encourage those students to apply regular decision. I understand that there's more to it than the financial piece. So of course that needs to be weighed. The difference between subsidized and unsubsidized. So let's say a first year student's taking the full amount of loan, 3,500 subsidized, 2,000 unsubsidized. That $3,500 is going to stay $3,500 until the student graduates, upon which at that time interest will start to accumulate and the student will begin to repay. For the unsubsidized portion, which is $2,000 a year, if a student also qualifies for sub, the interest would be accumulating upon each disbursement. So in the fall semester, I would disperse $1,000, half of that $2,000 per student, and the interest at 3.373% would start to accumulate on that $1,000. The next semester, when I do another 1,000, then the interest will now be accumulating on 2,000, and so on and so forth. Is FAFSA and CSS the only financial aid requirements for Brandeis? Generally, yes. We may also require a business return if your family has any self-employment income from 2020. Juniors can fill out the FAFSA starting and the profile starting October 2022. And at that point for juniors, it'll be those applications will be requesting 2021 tax data. So you'd want to make sure that, you know, people are doing their 2021 taxes now, so that that information is readily available in October.
These are great questions, everyone.
Yeah, really good question.
We have 2 more minutes.
So for the eligibility criteria for sub versus unsub. So if you recall the slide with cost of attendance minus EFC. So as long as the cost of attendance minus the EFC is greater than 0, that means that the student could potentially qualify for a subsidized loan. So the student has to demonstrate financial need. And yes, I can put the slide back up. Maybe I can put the slide back up.
Mm-hmm.
This one. So if financial aid eligibility is greater than 0, so if we get here and we look at this example, if the cost of attendance is $75,000 and a family's EFC is 5, I now have $70,000 that I can fill with need-based financial aid. A subsidized loan is considered a form of need-based financial aid. An unsubsidized loan is not considered a form of need-based financial aid. So if a family, you know, does not qualify for need-based aid, they would receive that full $5,500 in loan eligibility from the federal government in unsubsidized funds. How the FAFSA will be changing, so fun. Yes, it's supposed to be easier to complete. Yes, it should be asking for far less information. We don't fully know the details of all of this yet. So what we call the EFC right now, the estimated family contribution, is going to be renamed and repurposed to what's called a student aid index. And that is designed to be less confusing, right? Because if your EFC is 5K, but the bottom line for you is 10K, that's not, you know, that's a little confusing if your estimated contribution is 5,000, but a school is expecting more. Whereas the student aid index is designed to be a bit more of a ballpark of eligibility that then the school can fill with need-based aid. Need blind versus need aware. So at Brandeis, we are, and I think many schools are a combination of both. So need blind means that every admissions application is read without any financial understanding of that family. Need aware means we're admitting you based on all of your admissions criteria, as well as what we know about your financial situation and how much aid you might require to attend. At Brandeis, most of our freshman class is completely need blind. As you get to the last bits of the class, a budget does come into play. So it may be for that last 5% of the class, and don't quote me on that. That's more of an admissions question, but for that last little bit of the class, we're then looking at, here's our budget, here are the students we've admitted, here's how much that costs, and for these last 100 slots or whatever, can we fill those with these students or a combination? So by and large, the process at Brandeis is need blind, but there is a component at the tail end that is more need aware. So if a student's highly admissible, it's not going to matter whether, that happens at the beginning or the end. Of course, if a student needs a lot of financial aid, yes, you want to look for more need blind schools. Absolutely. Keep in mind too, though, that the transfer process is almost always need aware. So in advising your students, I think sometimes when we have these ideas like go here and then transfer here, be careful with the transfer if a student needs a lot of aid, because the transfer processes at most, if not all schools, are generally need aware because that budget is much more finite.
Thank you so much, Amy.
You're welcome.
Quick, and you're probably used to making longer presentations.
No worries.
For intro, so we really appreciate it, and we do have your email, so we'll share that out to the group.
Yes.
Thank you for sharing that with us. And is it possible for you to send me the slides too, Amy?
Sure. What's your email address, Jillian?
It's hallj@newton.k12.ma.us.
Newton.k12.ma.us.
Yep.
Great. I got it.
Awesome.
And to the student who direct messaged me, if you could please email my email address, I'd be so grateful so that I can take your question offline and try to help. Okay.
Awesome. Thank you.
All
right. Bye.
Take care.
That has officially joined our Zoom, and her name is Esther. I will go ahead and spotlight her.
Hi.
Where are you, Esther?
Oh, I don't know if you, and maybe it's me talking. Well,
yes, let me
it'll
see.
come.
That
Perfect.
is much better. Yes, thank you. So I will go ahead and hand it over to you, Esther. Thank you so much for being here today, and for giving our mentees and mentors a campus tour today. We really appreciate it.
I'm so excited to be here. Essentially how this is going to go, I'm going to share my screen. We can see it's a really cool visual of the Brandeis campus. And this is so exciting because I'm so used to giving in-person tours where we're wearing masks. So I love being able to see everyone's face. It's super exciting. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
Perfect. All right. And I hopefully I will be looking at the chat, but I can't, sometimes it's a little hard when sharing screen. So
Esther, if you're okay with it, I'm happy to monitor the chat and I can just sort of jump in and ask the question. So then that way you don't have to focus on that.
Thank you so much. That is very helpful.
Okay. Awesome.
So yeah, absolutely. Feel free throughout to drop questions in the chat. Also after every stop, I'll ask if anyone has questions and feel free to unmute, and I'll absolutely leave time at the end for us to chat. All right. Quick interval. So first, this is us looking at the beautiful admissions building. If you ever come and visit Brandeis's campus, this will probably be your first stop. I'm just going to do a quick introduction. My name is Esther. I am a current junior at Brandeis. I am from Northampton, Massachusetts, which is about an hour and a half west of Brandeis. I use she, her pronouns. I'm majoring in sociology and film, interactive media, and television studies. And then I'm minoring in theater, social justice / social policy. And I recently just declared a third minor in women and gender studies. When I'm not giving tours at admissions, I am pretty involved in theater on campus, both with clubs and with the department, both of which we'll be talking about later. And I do a lot of work with Brandeis Department of Orientation. So if you have any questions about the first year experience, I planned orientation this summer, so I can absolutely answer questions about that. And I am also the current president of Queer Jews at Brandeis, so I have a lot of involvement with Hillel. I am super excited to talk to you all today and about, housing, dining, academics, research. There's just like so much to go through. So please feel free to ask questions. Even if you think it might be something that like I haven't mentioned that I'm involved in. I do have a lot of friends who are involved in basically everything Brandeis has to offer. So I will absolutely either know the answer to the question or be able to direct you to a person who can answer your question. Amazing. Any questions before we get started? I'm so excited. This is actually, fun fact, my first virtual tour, and I'm very excited for it. All right. Great, we will get started then. All right, so this is the Shapiro Campus Center, also known as the SCC. A lot of fun acronyms I think you'll see on Brandeis campus. We do have 7 buildings with the name Shapiro in it, which is actually not as confusing as you would think because we have all these really great acronyms. This is our amazing student center. I'm going to kind of pivot so you can see. I absolutely love this website. So if you want to go after and look, I can absolutely send it into the chat and you can do a little tour. You can look more in depth if you'd like. So at the SCC, there are so many incredible little things. You're like, oh my gosh, everything I could want is here. Oh gosh, sorry, things are just happening. I'm sorry, I'm gonna, sorry, I'm going to stop sharing for a second and figure out what is happening. Oh, there we go. Okay. Okay, I'm also just going to turn my notifications off so nothing is interrupted. Okay, sorry. Back to the SCC. First, what I want to focus on is Einstein's bagels. So this is probably the most popular like Brandeis food establishment, I would say. People are always like, Garden Bagels, getting coffee here. They have an avocado toast that I really like, and it's super easy because you can order online through a Bite app. So it's super easy. And then also right next to it, as you can kind of see, is our campus store. So if you want any like cool Brandeis sweatshirts. Also, if you're just like, oh my gosh, I have class in 5 minutes and I need a highlighter, you can just run there and it's super easy. They have like basically everything. You walk in, you're like, oh my gosh, I need sunscreen, and they have it right here. Additionally, the SCC is home to a bunch of different really amazing clubs. So kind of I'll point down this hallway over here, we have the theater. And so in this theater, I'm definitely very familiar with it. We have things like the 24-hour musical, which you might have heard about. Essentially, you have 24 hours to put on to, do the set, do the costumes, learn the lines, learn the songs of a musical. This last semester, we did we did Camp Rock, which was so fun. There's like a musical version, a stage musical of the movie. And it was really incredible. And it's such a fun way. It happens every fall to get involved, and you meet a bunch of cool people and everyone gets in. So you can really be a horrible singer. I can't sing at all. And it's just so fun, and it's chaotic, but that's what makes it amazing. Additionally, in the SCC, we have Waltham Group, which is the largest student service organization on campus. I'm involved, I like to in Habitat for Humanity, so going on builds. Last semester, we had this really fun demolition build where we just went to this house of a veteran who needed his house redone, and we just like demoed it and we're building it back up. It's really fun. And there's 19 other programs. So basically everything that you could want is there if you're interested in, activism, educational opportunities, working with children, working with animals. There's basically everything that you could want. Also in the SCC, we have our radio station, WBRS. My old roommate Saul has a weekly radio show where it's from like 11:30 p.m. to 12:30 a.m. where he's a little like sleepover themed. It's really fun. And there is also a dark room in the SCC. There's just a really amazing resources, and it's such a beautiful place to hang out with people, do homework, all that kind of stuff. Does anyone have any questions before we head to talk about dining? Amazing. Again, feel free to drop them in the chat and we'll have a time at the end to chat. Okay, on to dining. I'm so happy we're doing this because usually when we're doing in-person tours, we just kind of like walk through really quickly, and now you get to have like a really, really great view of Sherman. So this is Sherman, one of our two kind of buffet style dining halls. What's really great about Sherman and USDAN, which is our other dining hall, is the options. So there are options for if you're vegan, if you're vegetarian, if you're gluten-free. This little station right here is the simple serving station, which is free of like the top like 8 allergens, which is just so amazing. I personally am vegan, and so it's really great to know that, I can have, what food, is safe for me to eat. And it's always really well labeled on the little signs. Also in Sherman on the other side, I think it's so fun. You can see little people walking. On the other side over here, there is a kosher side of Sherman. Any student is welcome to go over there, no matter if you're kosher or not. Kosher is a set of like eating values that some people who are like religious Jews practice and keep too, but it's like there's sushi over there. They have really good like fake chicken nuggets, and I would say the fries on the kosher side are like better than any fries anywhere else. So it's really great. You can go over there even if you don't keep kosher. And it's also really fun. All the dining workers are so incredibly nice, and it's always really fun to kind of see the ones that you normally talk to. So essentially our other dining hall, USDAN, is basically the same with, different with like salad bar or fruit bar. There's always pasta and stuff like that. Also, if you're kind of less interested in this like buffet style, there are also several different dining options that you can order. There's like an app on your phone, and it's so nice just to be able to order and then go pick it up. And that most of that resides in upper USDAN, which we'll kind of see later, which is kind of above our other dining hall. So there's a Mexican place, there's a sub place, you can get more sushi, there's a really good smoothie place, there's Dunkin' Donuts, there's a kosher deli. It's really awesome. You can always find the menus online if you're interested in looking at specific things. They've recently started offering smoothie bowls with oat milk, which is so exciting. And it's a really great option if you're, a busy Brandeis student and you're running and you just want to, grab a sandwich before your next meeting. And it's so easy and really, really awesome. Also in Sherman, kind of up the stairs, there is a kind of a Brandeis like sports bar kind of called the Stein. Every week there is trivia there, along with there being like mozzarella sticks and like really good artichoke dip. But the weekly trivia is really cool. I don't know if you guys have seen, but there is a Brandeis student who's actually competing in Jeopardy right now. He's actually my old roommate, and he basically wins trivia every single week at the Stein. And now he's on Jeopardy and just won his first round. So it's really exciting. If you want to watch, I think it's on again on Friday. So the college championship is really fun. All right, really quickly, lastly, to talk about dining is meal plans. So there are like 4 different kinds of like main meal plans. There's the 10, the 12, the 15, and the 18. So what these are is it's, that number of meals per week. So it's 12 meal swipe, like sort of the 12 is the most common. It'll be like 12 meal swipes a week. And then you also get $850 in points, which can be used at all of the different dining options I mentioned before, like the Sub and the Smoothie Place. Also with our convenience store called the C-Store or Hoot Market, which is basically just like a little grocery store. I personally, when I live off campus now, but when I lived on campus, I was on the 10. I found that it worked really, really well for me because I preferred the different options of where I could just grab and go. But I have some friends who are like on the 15 because they prefer to eat in the dining halls. All right, any questions about dining before we head to talk about housing? Great, okay. On to housing. This is so fun. It's like, I love these type of beautiful days because there's always people sitting outside. All right, okay, so this is Macel Residence Quad, which is one of our 2 residence quads that first years generally reside in. See, you can see there's a little thing you can see of the room, which is really cool. So this is Macel. The other quad that we'll see later actually is north. So each building, depending on your, regardless of quad, is the same. Though I would say people do get really competitive about what quad they lived in their first year. It's kind of fun. Like if you ask someone, they'll be like, "Oh no, like north is by far the best," and then someone will be like, "No, it's Macel," when they're really similar. But it's kind of it's a cute like campus pride thing. So each building has laundry, has kitchens, has lounges, has bathrooms. There are options on the floors. There's single gender, there's co-ed. Also, I know that there is a like kind of queer inclusive, if you want to be kind of surrounded by other queer people, if you identify that way. I believe there is one in North this year, which is so cool. Each floor also has a CA, community advisor. That's really similar to what other colleges call RAs, but we call them community advisors because their job is really to facilitate a wonderful community within the residence halls. Like for example, my sophomore year, it was COVID, and so it was kind of hard for us to meet in person. But my CA, Nick, planned a whole bunch of really great events. There was one where we could go pick up little plants and pots and then go on Zoom and paint them together. So you can look forward to that kind of events if that is something that you like. I love doing little crafts, and so it's often that, or sometimes it'll be food. It's really cool. This is also just, I love like looking at the pond. And sometimes there's like geese in it. It's just really fun. And when talking about the specific rooms, there are different options. Usually for first years, it'll be a double, a natural triple, which will be 2 rooms and 3 people living in them, or a lofted triple, which would be 1 room and then a sort of like bunk bed situation. Actually, every single person I know who's had a lofted triple or a natural triple is really, really good friends with their roommates. It kind of creates a really, really special bond. Or honestly with doubles. I basically everyone I know had such good luck with their roommates because Brandeis does this really great roommate selection process of where you fill out this form about, how messy you are, when you like to wake up, what kind of music you like, what other things you're interested in. So they can, pair you with someone who maybe meets the same things of like, oh, we both go to bed around the same time. We both like to be clean, but maybe has like a few different interests than you. So you can meet someone and like that's different from you, and then also have a built-in friend, which is just really cool. There's also options like once you get older to live in suites. I've really loved living in suites. I've lived in suites for 3 of my semesters. And there's also off-campus options if you like. About like 80% of our students stay on campus all 4 years. And there's also a lot of options kind of living off campus. I'm like a 5-minute walk from campus right now. So it's really great because I just love the feeling of being kind of at Brandeis. And so I wanted to make sure I still had that even if I was living off campus. Any questions about housing? Usually this is people have like so many different questions about this. So I'm really happy to answer them. Great. Okay. We will move on then. This is, oh, is there something?
I'm sorry, Esther, we actually do have a question.
Oh, amazing.
Are any of the dorms on the newer side?
Yes. So
oh, I think she might be frozen. Give her a second, see if she pops back in. Esther, can you hear me?
there's actually one that will, but there's also, I recently was a mid-year. Hello.
Esther, we lost you for a second.
Am I back?
You are back now. If you could just start answering the question. I don't know how far you got in answering, but if you could just start over answering, are any of the dorms newer?
I think she actually.
Did she just drop?
I'm so sorry.
Oh, there you are.
I'm so sorry. My Wi-Fi is usually good.
I also didn't know if it was me because sometimes our Wi-Fi isn't great, but everyone.
I will share my screen again and then answer that question.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then we also do have somebody raising their hand as well after.
Amazing.
Okay.
Apologies again.
Okay.
All right. So there are some newer residence halls. Like I personally lived in one called Village my first semester because I was a mid-year. I started in January. And that was really great, but it was kind of like the same experience as, living in a residence hall, kind of no matter what year it was built. But there are some newer ones, and there are options in every single residence hall if you have like accessibilities, like some students need air conditioning. And so there's like AC units in a lot of the halls. So there's always like a lot of options in each of them. And we will see kind of a little picture of one of the newest residence halls a little bit later. Is there another question in the
Yes, and then Donna, did you have a question?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I guess I wanted to ask about the commuter community. Like Brandeis is such a great school, but a lot of the kids live locally here, and it might be a nice option if they could commute to Brandeis and not, because the room and board fees are, can be quite high. So I was just wondering, is there a commuter community that you know about that, for them to hang out? I know some schools have like special places for commuters to hang out and in between classes and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know a few people who are commuters, and I would say there is a really great opportunity during orientation for all commuters to meet. They have a whole special different session for them to go and meet each other, all that kind of stuff. But I would say during the school year, people don't really treat them any differently in that sense of there's so many community spaces on campus that everyone's just hanging out. There's always opportunity, like, oh, like, you know, if it's okay, like you don't live on campus, like come back to my suite, we can like eat dinner there, or we can do work there, or all that kind of stuff. So it is such an amazing option. And all the friends who I have that are commuters really still feel incredibly part of the Brandeis community, because they're still, you know, on campus all the time. And they're, you know, hanging out all in the SEC or the library and stuff like that. And it's a really great community. And I do think that people, you know, they meet each other during orientation, and then they're like, oh my gosh, you're both commuters. And sometimes people will drive together, all that kind of stuff. It's really cute. It's great.
Thank you, Esther. And then we do have another question in the chat. Is it required that first-year students live on campus?
That is a great question. I don't entirely know the answer to that.
Okay.
I believe that unless there's, I'm going to double check on that, but I believe unless there's like extenuating circumstances, they do ask that you live on campus your first year. I don't know if Alexa is still here.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Esther. Yeah, we do ask that all of our first year students live on campus. Yeah, so that's a great question.
Great, thank you so much, Alexa.
Yeah.
And I, you know, most people I know, like after they live on campus the first semester, even if they were like, oh, you know, I was actually, you know, want to live like off campus, something like that, they end up staying on campus because it really is, like, it's just a really fun community to be there. And, you know, it's like whatever way you find it, like if, you know, if you're a commuter student, you're still going to find the fun community just in different ways.
Thank you. I think that's all of our questions.
Okay, perfect.
At this moment. Good questions, everybody. Keep asking.
Yes, I love them. Okay, we'll move on to our next. And then we'll have time for questions at the end if more things do pop up and you're like, oh my gosh, I forgot about this.
Yep, Esther, we do have one more now.
Amazing.
What is parking like for commuters?
Oh yeah, great. Okay, actually, so there is a parking pass that you can buy. Like there's different parking passes that you can buy, depending on, you know, if you're where you live, if you're a commuter, all that kind of stuff. It's like the commuter pass. I don't remember the exact price, but it is not expensive. It's really nice. And you can just like park. The parking office is really wonderful and very responsive. If you do have any questions about like specific about price, then they tell you, you know, it's really very clear, like where you're allowed to park, where you're not allowed to park. I have a car and I live off campus. I never have any problems like finding parking on campus that's like really close to where I want to be. I would say, yeah, there are like a ton of different lots. So it's really great. And I would say that commuter students should have absolutely no problem dealing with parking.
Thank you.
Of course. Okay. Going to move on. And then at the end, I just want to make sure we have time to get to everything. And at the end, we'll absolutely go back for more questions. All right. So this is Chapel's Pond. It's so beautiful. It's like a shape of a little heart. It's really cute. So these are the three chapels. I'll turn around so you can see the third one. Great. So these represent the three major religions from when Brandeis was founded, which is Judaism, Catholicism, and Protestantism. Obviously, there are a whole slew of religions that aren't in those three that are practicing on Brandeis campus. There are like Muslim prayer circles, Dharmic prayer rooms. Those are actually located in the SEC, which we saw earlier. There are, so many different opportunities for religion and
Esther, we lost your sound. No one can hear her, right? It's not just me. Okay.
No.
We lost your sound temporarily.
But your Wi-Fi looks good.
Yeah. We'll give her a second, maybe reconnect.
Hi.
Hello.
I
How are you?
I just connected to like my phone on like a hotspot, so hopefully that'll be better.
Okay, no worries. This is our students are used to Wi-Fi struggles, so it's all good.
Great. Okay, sharing my screen again. We're trying it again. I know this is really our life now, isn't it? With Zoom. All right. What I was saying, really cool thing about how the chapels were built is they were designed not to, wherever the sun was, not to cast shadows on each other, which really represents Brandeis's importance of inclusivity. And I always think that's so cool. And looking at the chapels is just a really beautiful experience. We are a non-sectarian university, but we are founded on inclusion. So there are a whole bunch of different religious options. There's Hillel, if you're interested in practicing Judaism while you're on campus. There are kind of like through the so many different incredible offices on campus. There's also, I know there's like Sunday services, as I mentioned before, there's like meditation rooms, and if you know any single religion that you could perhaps be interested in practicing, there will be that opportunity on campus if that is something that you're interested in. I'm just going to quickly swivel over here. You can see this beautiful green area over there is Chapel's Field. On Chapel's Field, there are kind of two, or actually one really big annual event that happens, and that's Spring Fest. So I don't know if you guys have heard about this before. Brandeis has been known to have one of the best kind of spring concerts. A lot of different campuses in the area do them, but Brandeis is well known for being great. We've had Kendrick Lamar come, Jessie J. It's always a really, really fun time, and it's always like the weeks leading up to it on campus. It's like electric. People are so excited. Also, on a more casual day, you might walk by and see the Frisbee team, doing a game, or rugby or Quidditch practice, or just people hanging out and studying or eating lunch. It's a really great social space. And it's also just gorgeous. Like, I love sitting there when it's sunny and just like people watching and doing my homework. It's really great. The Wi-Fi reaches out there, so it's really awesome. Any questions about religion, about chapels, about anything? Great. I'm going to move on. Just want to make sure we have time. Okay. This is the Shapiro Science Center, the SSC, another acronym. This is another beautiful building of Brandeis, really pretty rooftop garden. I love kind of walking up there actually at night. I do a lot of night walks around campus, and it's always fun to discover little things. Like, I found this rooftop garden like my first semester, and I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. I'm going to talk really quickly about research. So Brandeis is an R1 research institution, which essentially means that we are given a bunch of money for research. And we're also one of the smaller research institutions. So we just have a whole bunch of more resources that we can allocate, compared to maybe a larger university that has to spread them a little bit thinner. I have a bunch of friends involved in research, for example, and they're not just like science research. There's research in every different field that you could imagine. I have friends who are doing research with a sociology professor on like Black chaplaincy and religion, mapping that in the US. I also have a friend that is doing science research and is looking at worms and DNA and injecting like fluorescent DNA into the worms to like see how they react to heat. I'm not a science person. I don't understand it, but it's so awesome that you're able to do that. Even as a, a first year, you can enter into research kind of whenever you want. And it's a really great way to bond with a professor. If you really like them, you could just send them an email. Hey, do you have any research opportunities? And it's so encouraged and just super exciting. Any questions about research before we move on to the library? Great. The library. So library is actually, as you can see right here, it is 2 different libraries, but they are connected. And it's a lot bigger than you would think just by walking past it or looking at it. It's actually 5 floors. It's huge. Kind of this on the left is the Farber library, and then on this side is Gold Farb. I'll kind of leave this on so you can see what a study room looks like. How it's organized is the top floors are kind of louder, more social, and as you get kind of down, it gets a little bit quieter. So if you're hoping to do just quiet study session, kind of the lower floors are better. There's actually the bottom floor, a little area of it's called, like, nicknamed the dungeon by Brandeis students, and I love the dungeon because it's so quiet and calming and like beautiful, so being surrounded by books. I know, like, the dungeon kind of, you're like, oh gosh, the dungeon, but no, it's like a really, really calming space. And so Farber is a little bit more like social, like you have like study rooms, like a lot of couches. There's different desks, like where you can, like a treadmill desk or a bike desk. And then if you go into Gold Farb, there are like tech help desks, librarians, research help desks, writing center. There's also Starbucks, which is great. My favorite resource on Brandeis is actually housed in the library. It's called SIMS, Sound Image Media Studio. It's in the basement, kind of near the dungeon, and you can rent cameras, video equipment, audio equipment for free, just being a Brandeis student. So you have access to these thousands of dollars of equipment, and you don't have to be a film major. I'm down there a lot, like using their really expensive like editing software, but you can just be you can be like, oh, I want a camera because I want to go do a photo shoot with my friends this weekend. And you just go pick it up for like 2 days and take really fantastic professional looking photos, and then return the camera, and then you can take it out again, whenever you want it. Also, just I've almost never purchased a textbook because I can always find them. Brandeis has a really great like online, it's called OneSearch. So you can either find a textbook that you need in the library, or you can find it, they'll have scanned it online. We also have like interlibrary loans. So if you have something in Brandeis library doesn't have it, they can probably find another one that has it. It's incredible. And everyone who works at the library, as everywhere in Brandeis, is so, so nice. All right, any questions about the library? Okay, we're moving on to USDAN Student Center. This is, as I mentioned before, it's huge because it also houses our second dining hall and a lot of those other like a la carte food options I mentioned before. But kind of here, I want to talk about, I'm gonna find, this little green area is really nice to sit when it's nice out. I'm going to talk about advising. So there's kind of 3 different like levels to advising at Brandeis. So you have you're the advising center, your academic advisor, which is assigned based on last name. And then you have your faculty advisor, which is kind of more geared towards perhaps what you might be interested in learning. Like my faculty advisor going in was a sociology professor, so it's perfect for me. And then you also have a Roosevelt Fellow, which is an assigned student who is trained to answer questions about academic advising. So it's really great because you can go to them if you have questions about professors, or you go to your academic advisor if you have questions about requirements, or your faculty advisor if you have questions about curriculum. So it's really awesome to have that. And then you're also given an advisor for each one of your majors and minors. So I currently have 8 advisors. I do not talk to all of them, like all the time, but like I have a call with my WGS, my Women and Gender Studies advisor later today to ask her a few questions. And it's really great. And you can just send them an email or sign up for a Zoom appointment if you have any questions, which is really fantastic. I also just saw a quick question in the chat about work study jobs. And yes, there are an incredible amount of work study jobs. I think the library is actually like, people love working at the library. One of my really good friends works there right now, and she has so much fun because you're at the desk or you're like walking around and you're like putting books back on the shelves. I can definitely, maybe at the end, I can talk more about my own experience with work study and kind of that whole thing, because it's really, really great at Brandeis. Another, this is the Roosevelt Fellow, the advisors I was talking about, student advisors, that's actually part of like a work study job. So yes, advising is really great. There's also like pre-professional advising. So if you're interested in going into like pre-law, pre-med, pre-vet, you will be given an advisor for that, which is great. I have a friend who's doing pre-law, and it's just such a fantastic support, especially when you're going into applying for grad school. Also in USDAN, like right over here is the Office of Study Abroad. So 40% of our juniors go abroad. The Office of Study Abroad is full with the most wonderful people I've ever met. They're really great. They can talk to you about, going abroad for a year, going abroad for a semester, going abroad for the summer. There's also like no pressure to go abroad. It's just a really awesome and fantastic resource to have. Also right next to Study Abroad, we have the Hyatt Career Center, which is, so other schools will often have like job centers, which is kind of similar to what Hyatt is, except for they want to help you find your career, not just find a job. So they'll help you not only with resume building and mock interviews and internships. They have a closet where you can borrow clothes for an interview. If you don't have like a blazer and you need one, you can go in and they'll find you one that fits and you can, rent it out. Also, it doesn't end when you graduate. If you are, 10 years out from graduating, you're like, I don't know what I want to do, you can call up Hyatt and they'll help you. And that also is really beneficial for current students, because a lot of Brandeis alums will go and say, hey, I'm working at this company, we need an intern. Can you find me a Brandeis student who can be an intern? So it's such an incredible community and network. And they're all so willing and excited to help. Also I'm just gonna toggle back, also kind of down this hallway in USDAN, there's a mail room, which is really great. You can get packages ordered there. They send you a little email that it's ready to be picked up. There's the convenience store, which I mentioned earlier. There's a game room, which is really fun. Overall, USDAN is just a really great social space. And there's also a lot of different like nooks and crannies for doing work if you need to. And there's just so many resources on campus. One last one that I'm going to point out is the GSC, which is the Gender and Sexuality Center. They have peer advisors. They put on a lot of great events, like I think they're doing Jeopardy tonight. They'll do larger events like drag shows or just kind of events to celebrate Pride. And they're also always there if you just like have questions or want to talk about gender and sexuality. There's professional staff, there's peer advisors. It's so incredible. I will also talk a little bit later about the Intercultural Center, which is very similar to the GSC, just in the way of it's an office at Brandeis that really celebrates diversity and inclusion. All right, I know I just said a whole bunch of stuff about advising, and about just the incredible building that is USDAN. So if you have any questions, feel free to, raise your hand, put in the chat before I move on. Great. Okay. Just really quickly, this is the other resident quad that normally first years will live in. So I can kind of show you around. A lot of really beautiful trees in North. But yeah, okay, on to academics. So this is the Mandel Humanities Quad. Kind of see like there are these steps over here that kind of lead down to USDAN. So this is where a lot of classes are, especially if you're in like humanities, social sciences, like language, all that kind of stuff but also there's like science centers and stuff like that, or science classes in this area as well. So the average class size is 26 students, but there's a huge range to that. I personally am mostly in smaller classes. I've had classes that are 10 people. I've had classes that are, this semester I'm in a larger anthropology class that's about 90 people. And then also in some really tiny sociology classes. So it kind of just depends on like what level. The intro level classes are going to be a little bit bigger. And once you get higher up, they're likely going to be a bit smaller. Obviously people have their own preferences. Some people really prefer larger classes. Or some people prefer kind of the more personal feeling of being in a small classroom. Professors, like the larger lecture hall classes, professors do teach, but there's always going to be a TA, a teacher's assistant, who's usually a grad student, sometimes an undergrad, who will lead sections, answer emails, kind of have additional office hours. And I've made a lot of really great connections with the TAs. One of my old TAs is now one of my professors. It's just really cool to kind of to follow them through their own Brandeis education. I have had such an incredible experience. I don't think when people talk about Brandeis, they talk about the amazing professors enough. I've had so many incredible professors who really care about you. They don't want you to just do well in academics. They wanted you to do well as a person. I've really incredible sociology professor named Michael Strand. He taught my favorite course, which was Morality in Capitalist Society. It was an incredible class talking about inequalities in the world, how that connects to capitalism, how do we kind of have a more ethical future. Classes like that I never expected to take when I, thought about college classes. And then you look at the course catalog and you're like, oh my gosh, so many incredible classes. You also may be wondering, how do so many Brandeis students, like, how do I have 2 majors and 3 minors? And that the answer to that would be cross-counting. So a lot of classes are cross-listed in different departments. So that sociology class I just mentioned was also listed in econ. So someone who is, doing an econ major, would be able to also take that class and have it count. Or right now I'm taking a sociology class that also counts for a math requirement. There are a few different requirements that Brandeis requires you to have, but when I was choosing a school, I really wanted one that wasn't too strict on requirements. So I'm really happy I found Brandeis where, the requirements are like, take a class that's, in each field, like in the School of Sciences, the School of, a humanities class, social science class, but it's so easy to fulfill those. And it also encourages you to maybe get out of your comfort zone a little bit. I really don't like math, but I really like the math class I'm in right now. So kind of perfect. And there's also some requirements that are more like, there's a requirement that's centered around social justice, and something that's like, a class that's like non-Western. So you're kind of opening your eyes to the world around you, which I think Brandeis really focuses on, but they want you to do it in a way that isn't stressful for you. It isn't stressful to fulfill all these requirements. It's easy, it's enjoyable, and you're able to fit your own interests around it. I see the chat is lighting up. I don't know if there's questions about academics we want to answer right now.
Esther, Alexa is answering
Amazing.
on the back end. So we don't have any outstanding questions at this point. So thank you
so
very
much.
Alexa.
Great. Thank you, Alexa. Yeah, I would say if you are interested in learning more about academics at Brandeis, it's really helpful just to look through the classes that are being offered this semester, because you can see, all the really cool and really classes that will stretch your mind and have you think a whole different way. I know that I'm going to leave Brandeis a different person because of the academics here. And I'm just going to feel so much more confident. And, I'm so excited to have, academic conversations after, taking these kind of classes. All right. This is Mandel, which is one of our other really great area where you have classes. There's a rooftop garden, which is gorgeous, and it's so fun to work up there, and you have a really great view, as you can see. Also, there's this is what a larger lecture hall might look like. It's still really personal. It's still really nice. And you still kind of feel like even if you're in a larger class, you still have that personal connection with the professor. And also beautiful study atrium up here. There's also, you can't see in this, but there's an amazing art installation that's above, and it's so gorgeous just to be. I love Mandel. It's a very sunny building. And there's, again, so many different places to kind of find a fun place to study. All right.
Esther, we do have one question. Have you had any problems getting into any of the classes you want?
So there's always that point in when registration, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm on a wait list for this, oh no. But I've always gotten in off of every wait list that I've been on. For example, I was in the wait list for 2 classes this semester that I really needed for a requirement, and I was nervous, but I emailed both the professors and they were like, oh my gosh, no, of course, you can join the class. So even if you are kind of on a wait list, emailing the professors or kind of just waiting it out a few days, you'll usually get in. I really think that the way that Brandeis structures its registration and they structure their classes, they want to make sure that everyone who wants it gets in. And of course, there are classes that are high demand and not everyone can get in, but there's always a really good alternative that might be similar enough that you're fulfilling the same requirements, or you're with the same professor, that kind of thing. I would say that professors are always so willing to change the cap of their classes a little bit if you really want to take the course. Great question. Thank you. Really quickly, I just want to show you Skyline, which is one of the newer residence halls. This is mostly sophomores, juniors live here. And it's called Skyline because can't really over there, right over there is a beautiful view of the Boston skyline. Yeah, and that I think you can kind of see the little buildings over there. And there's also some really great social spaces. All right. And just really quickly, right next to Skyline is the castle. There is just a really fun student-run coffee shop in the castle, and they'll have karaoke nights, open mic nights, craft nights. When it's really warm out, sometimes they'll have come get ice cream at Chums, which is the name of the coffee house. So just want to quickly show you that because the castle is beautiful and very fun. Okay. Really quickly going to touch on the Intercultural Center. There are 17 clubs that are part of the ICC. It was really founded by student activism, kind of wanting to make sure that there was a place for all students on campus to feel represented, to feel safe, to feel like they, were able to come if they had any questions. Some of all of the clubs are so incredible, and they focus on education, they focus on activism, they focus on community. They also have really wonderful cultural shows. So in last semester, BASA, which is one of the Asian students associations on campus, put on like a really beautiful cultural show. And I'm trying to think, there's like Mela every year, which is celebrating all of the South Asian countries, the beautiful like dancing cultural show. And it's, you know, it's not just things like that that are open to the whole community. There's also like kind of smaller like weekly meetings with people, or it's Black History Month. So there was like Black Prom, I think like 2 nights ago. And, you know, every weekend there's a different thing. And the really great thing about Brandeis is it isn't, no clubs are exclusive. So everyone, you know, everything is open for you to learn more about different cultures that aren't your own in a respectful and honorable way. Any questions about that before we go? Now we're just have a few more stops to talk about kind of art. I know we only have a few more minutes, so I'm going to talk fast. And so we have time for questions at the end. Okay, it's loading. This is going to be the Rose Art Museum when it does. Okay, perfect. Rose Art Museum, absolutely wonderful collection. It's incredible. You think you're like, oh, it's really small. You go in and there's like, there are Andy Warhol like pieces of art in the Rose. Last semester is a really wonderful Frida Kahlo exhibit, kind of about her life. And I think they just have, there's just a new one, I believe, that started like 2 days ago. That's a photography exhibit. It's so wonderful. It houses one of the best collections of contemporary art, and most extensive collections of contemporary art in New England. There are opportunities for students to work at the Rose. There's a student council called SCRAM, the Student Council for Rose Art Museum. And it's free for Brandeis students. If you have a free afternoon, just walking through is really incredible. Also right here are the Lights of Reason, which is a kind of art installation that I love when I take my night walks. I love sitting by the Lights of Reason. And every year during orientation, there's a really wonderful tradition where all of the first years get together. They have little tea light, like electric tea lights, and you think about what you want your 4 years at Brandeis to look like. And then you light them up and you kind of celebrate your entrance into Brandeis. And people also take a lot of graduation photos here. So it's really, really full circle. All right, we are going to head over to Schlossberg Recital Hall. So the Schlossberg is home to kind of all the music on campus. If you're a music major, you're going to spend a bunch of time here. There are also a lot of Brandeis, I think in general is a musical campus. We have the most a cappella groups per capita in the United States. Don't know why that turned black. Hold on. So there's like an a cappella group for like every different thing you could like want. I have a friend who's in a musical theater a cappella group, a musical theater / Disney. They're doing a Phineas and Ferb arrangement. Like I never would have imagined that as possible. There's also
the Brandeis Department of Music offers students the opportunity to experience music.
The video started playing. Scared me. All right, I'm gonna turn that off. Okay. But yes, if you want to do the virtual tour later, they also will talk to you if you'd like it. There's like like music practice rooms. Also, if you're a music major or involved in any way, like you can like rent instruments. It's also not just for music majors. If you kind of are interested in using a practice room, you can always talk to someone. And there's also a chamber choir, there's an orchestra, so many different experiences and opportunities for creativity. Speaking of creativity, we're going to head to Spingold, which is home to the Department of Theater Arts on campus. I am a theater minor, so I spent a lot of time in there here. This is it's really cool. It's a circular building. So if you ever get lost, you just keep walking in a circle and you'll find it. This is the main stage. There are kind of a few main stage productions every year. I had a friend last semester who was in a really wonderful devised outdoor production. His name's Kieran. He's a dancer, and he was able to work with professional Boston area creators to like make this beautiful piece of art, and it was outside and it was gorgeous. There's also a really wonderful tradition every single year called This Is Our House, kind of going into your time at Brandeis. You have this like kind of like fun, like hype party, usually in Spin Gold. It's a wonderful experience. And there's always, I have a bunch of friends who will take theater classes, even if they aren't theater majors or minors. While we're here too, I'm just really quickly gonna talk about just like general arts on campus. It's nothing is ever super closed. So I have a bunch of friends who are STEM majors, but they decide like, hey, I want to take a one art class every semester to kind of work a different part of my brain. And you can just do that. You can just sign up for an art class. So it's just really fun. Okay, this is our second to last stop. I'm going to talk about athletics, and then I'm going to hopefully there'll be like a few minutes for questions. So this is Gosman, our athletic center. There are kind of 3 different levels to athletics at Brandeis. So there is, we're a D3 school. So we have like, our varsity sports, we have our club sports, and we have our intramural sports. So D3 is like kind of more traditionally through like, you talk with coaches and stuff like that. And I'd be more than happy to put you in contact with anyone. If you're interested in doing like, soccer, or we're actually a D1 fencing school because there's only one division of fencing, but it's kind of fun to be like, oh, well, our fencers are D1 athletes. There's also club sports that it's more like rugby, ultimate, stuff like that. And they'll compete with other schools in the Boston area. And there's also intramural sports, which is so cool. There's bubble soccer. And if you guys have seen that, like, those big bubbles where they kind of ram into each other and play soccer. And it's like, that's so fun. And that's kind of more of a campus thing where you just go and be like, oh my gosh, there's bubble soccer day. We have to go watch. So that's more competing Brandeis student versus Brandeis student. And it's all fun. And Gosman also will has week exercise classes basically every day of the week. My friend Hannah teaches a Zumba class. There's also just the general gym offerings, like huge cardio rooms, weight rooms, a pool, a basketball court, all that kind of stuff. And there's, out here, there's all these different fields for baseball, for football, for soccer. All right. Last stop. I'm just going to talk really quickly about my why Brandeis story, and then we can answer all the questions if we have the time. I was, like many of you and your students and just anyone who could be possibly applying to college, was feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't want to do this. I'm so stressed. So when I was going through a lot of my different tours, I was like, I don't want to be here. I hate this, all that kind of stuff. It definitely was not a good mindset. And I know that now, but coming to Brandeis, I was not in the best mood. I was like, I have been to so many different college tours. I don't want to do this again. But from the second I stepped on campus, I started to feel like a little bit different. And I was like, no, I was trying to resist it. So I was like, my mom was like, it's so beautiful here, all that kind of stuff. I was like, Mom, no, I was a high schooler determined to not like anything. But the second we stepped onto campus and even into admissions, I'm a junior now. My mom still talks about how nice the receptionist was at admissions. And she was like, that's when I knew that it was the right school for you. And so it was and every person we met was like that. It's a wonderful campus community. It's so warm. And, the second I stepped on campus, I was like, it just felt right. And I hope that, that same gut feeling, can, be present, just in everyone's, college admissions process. If it's Brandeis, if it's, some other place. I just want you to find the place that's right for you. And for me, that's Brandeis. And for so many of my friends, it's Brandeis. And I found the most amazing community here. And I'm so happy I was able to talk to you all about it. I'm so sorry for the internet and connectivity issues, but that is the end of my official tour. I would love to answer, questions. If we have time, I'm also gonna put my email in the chat. So I can, if you would like to contact me with any further questions, I'd be so happy to either do a Zoom or just to answer things over email. I'm gonna stop sharing so I can see the chat, just to see if there's anything. Okay, perfect. I going to drop my email just so we can, I know you guys have to eat lunch because it's noon. So I'm going to just drop my email. I'm sorry for all the internet and connectivity issues, but it was so wonderful speaking to all of you today. It's so wonderful to see all your faces, and I hope you have I'm dropping my email in the chat, and please contact me. I'd be so happy to talk. I know that we didn't have time for a bunch of questions, though Alexa obviously was answering them in the chat. But yes, that's it. Enjoy your lunch. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. We would have had no idea that was your first virtual tour. You really had it down, and it was so informative. So thank you. And, all the personal touches you put in there too about things you're involved with, and your story is really helpful. And I'm sure our students will take advantage of your email in the chat. So thank you for, being willing to talk to them as well.
Yeah, of course.
Really so good. Shift gears now, and I'm going to turn the program over to Alexa Cole, who has 3 students who are also in the Zoom, and we will open it up to our first generation student panel. So Alexa, I'll hand it off to you.
Yeah, thanks, Jillian. I don't know if you can spotlight our students. That'd be great. So we have Diana, Julia, and Veronica. Let me see if I can find hey, Diana. Okay, I can see, I see Julia and Veronica on my screen.
All right. Perfect.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, thank you all for your time and attention throughout this retreat. It's been really fantastic for us over here at Brandeis, to help facilitate the start of your college journey and this time of exploration for you all. So we're very grateful to be able to be a part of this process for you. So this is going to be a very informal panel of 3 of our current students, not all of whom are first generation. So we actually have a mix of experiences and backgrounds among our 3 students here. So I'll allow all of our students to just take a minute, unmute yourself, introduce yourself, your name, where you're from, your year, your major or your intended major. Veronica, I know you're one of our first years. So y'all can take it away from right now.
I can hop in. Hi, my name is Diana. I'm a senior here at Brandeis. I'm from Philadelphia, and I'm studying business and psychology.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Julia. I'm actually an international student here at Brandeis. I'm originally from Germany, and I'm a junior here at Brandeis, and I'm a triple major. I study international global studies, sociology, and our public health program here at Brandeis.
Hello, everyone. My name is Veronica Vong. I'm from Lynn, Massachusetts. I'm a first year, and I intend on double majoring in HSSP and biology.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you all. And I'll just quickly introduce myself again as well for those of you who may not have been with us earlier today. I'm Alexa Cole. I'm one of the assistant directors of undergraduate admissions here at Brandeis, and I'll be moderating this conversation today. So firstly, I would love for any or all of you to briefly describe what your college search process was like. Did you have guidance counselors at your school that were helping you? Were your parents, your main source of help or guidance? Did you work with an organization like a nonprofit? Yeah, I'd love to hear what those experiences were like for you all.
I could start. So yes, I am a first generation college student. So I was actually in a nonprofit organization called La Vida Scholars. And it was a college access program. So it helped kids who were first generation students, low income. And they were so supportive because they helped us through every step of the application. We went from essays to the CSS Profile to FAFSA to reviewing documents to applying to college. And it was so supportive having that support. And they led me to Brandeis and helped me with my application here and got in.
Awesome. I can also hop in. So I'm also a first generation student, and I'm also the first person to go to the United States from my family. And the process in Germany is very different to the United States. So we don't have ACTs, we don't have SATs. So these were all things I had to figure out. I didn't quite have the same kind of guidance lots of students would have here in the United States. I didn't have a college guidance counselor at the time when I was applying. And actually I took a gap year right before going to Brandeis, and I lived in Brazil for that year. So I had to kind of navigate through taking the SAT while actually in Brazil. But I actually worked also with an organization called Global Citizen Year, which is also a nonprofit, and they had a guidance counselor that was working with all of us a little bit. So, I got a letter of recommendations from them, and also just was helped through the whole process on, the Common App and things like that.
Yeah, so I am not a first generation student, so my process was a little bit different, and I have an older brother who also went through the same process. So mine was more self-directed. I met with my high school college guidance counselor once or twice throughout the process to just like make a list of schools, but it was pretty self-directed in terms of where I was looking. I applied to like 5 schools only because it was a lot and I was overwhelmed in the process. But, looking of what was a good match and not overwhelming myself in all the different applications.
Great. Yeah, that's fantastic. Especially to hear the array of differences and all of your processes and how you ended up here. Speaking of which, so in thinking about that transition period from high school to college, what do you think were some of the most challenging aspects of that period for you all?
Go first. I feel like the transition was really hard, especially being from Lynn. But I was a part of MYM. I'm a part of MKTYP. It's a program here at Brandeis that I'm actually part of. I'm first year part of that program. And I was placed in a cohort with familiar students that have similar backgrounds with me. And we work together as a small little group. We travel places together. We have the same classes, which really helped in my transition here at college because we work together. And I really, really enjoyed that part of Brandeis was the transition and them being so supportive with all of our different backgrounds and our circumstances and our diversities, and having that inclusion was one of the best supports that I could have had during my transition to going to college, especially being a first generation college student, not having any experiences, my family not having any experiences. So it was basically just me going. I didn't know what to expect. So it was a bit overwhelming, but again, I can't stress enough how important MKTIP was to me and my progress here.
For me, obviously, it was also quite challenging, not only, making that big transition and leaving your parents and, going to college, but also, of course, for me, in my case, coming to another country and dealing with cultural shocks, dealing with the food, and things like that. But thankfully, here at Brandeis, we actually had 20% international students, so I wasn't alone at all. And we have a really great office, the International Students Office, who was working with me right from the beginning. And then the transition was actually made a lot easier during our orientation here at Brandeis. I got to meet my academic advisor. I got to meet student peers that were helping me transition and also just help me locate different resources here at Brandeis, which was super helpful, especially in the beginning.
Yeah, and I would say like for just about everyone, like college is a huge transition and there's going to be lots of challenges along the way. I remember about a month into school, I like saw an adult walking a dog on campus and was like, whoa, this is like the first adult I've seen in a while, because really college is about you're coming here and you're the only one in charge of yourself, like who is setting the rules for yourself, who is making these decisions. And like as freeing and fun as that can be, it also comes with a lot of responsibility and a lot of scary elements of what does it mean to balance social life and academics and everything in between, and how do you build those support systems for yourself when in previous cases it might have already just been ingrained in your program. So those were definitely a lot of learning curves that at least I experienced.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think one thing to make a point of is that schools like Brandeis, we are very residential. So as I mentioned earlier during the retreat, we do require all of our first year students to live on campus. So that in itself is a huge transition for students. Even if you live, just over in Newton, not super far away, it still will be, a big difference to be living on campus, living with a roommate who you would be meeting for the first time. Oftentimes, you may only have 2 classes every day. So, your whole day is kind of open. You're not sitting in class from, 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. So you really need to start to develop those time management skills that, may not have been something that you really had to think about when you were in high school. So that's just, one example of those challenges that really all students face, regardless of whether or not a student is first gen and low income, or if a student is a legacy. Those are transitions that all students need to overcome, and it's kind of nice to know that you're all starting off at that point, and you automatically have kind of a support system of your peers when you come to campus. And kind of on that note, I'd love to hear from each of you. How did you find resources and support systems when you got onto campus?
Yeah, I can just quickly add to what I already said before. Definitely orientation was super helpful. So I got to meet, teaching assistants, my community advisor, which is a student who lives who used to live in the first year student's dorm and can, show you around and just tell them a little bit and be like an older student you can look up to, but also ask questions when you're confused. And also actually have the first gen support system here at Brandeis. It's a network, and they have really fun events happening all throughout the semester. They organize dinners, they organize kind of events where you get to talk a little bit about the challenges you navigate as a first gen student. So that's been really nice having that community as well.
Yeah, I can definitely pick off what Yulia was saying. Definitely the resources, first gen. Also, being a college student, you're always alone. So it's like there's always an event happening that you can just go to with the resources. Like for me, and I can just go walk around campus and then I see flyers, or I see like a group of people, or I see people just standing there giving out resources. There's always resources, no matter where you come from, who you are, your problems, there's always something out there for you. And that's what I really like about Brandeis, is that there's always a community that you can find for yourself. And if you can't find it, you can make it.
Yeah, totally. Just to echo what you said, Veronica, there's almost an overwhelming amount of resources to go through and figure out through. So something I definitely found helpful my first year was joining clubs and activities and making friends through those clubs. So for me, I joined a club sports team, rugby, and by meeting with and talking to upperclassmen on those teams, they really helped me navigate some of the more more effective and helpful resources that they use when going through similar struggles or similar challenges throughout their time. And just using the whole Brandeis community as a support system is something that I love about Brandeis.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, thank you all so much. I do want to, invite all of you, especially our mentees, to ask any questions to our three panelists. Anything that you guys are thinking of, whether it's related to academics, admissions, student life, clubs, anything that you guys are thinking of, we'd all be more than happy to give you all some insight. And if y'all don't have any questions, I can keep asking questions to students as well.
We do have a raised hand, it looks like. Donna?
Yeah, hi. I was wondering, did you guys feel like you were prepared for Brandeis academically when you got here? Like, did you feel like it was a good fit, or it was, because I think part of the whole search process is to find a school that fits the students so that they're not overwhelmed with academics, so that they can then enjoy everything the school has to offer, not just one thing. So I was just, you felt like you were prepared from your high school into Brandeis? You felt like you were prepared?
I can answer. So going back to the program that I'm in, so I'm in MyraCraft transitional year program. So basically it's a program where we take 4 core classes that are similar to Brandeis classes that help us transition into taking a real Brandeis course. And I feel like that really helped in terms of preparing myself for a Brandeis class. In terms of me transitioning from high school to Brandeis, I feel like to an extent I was prepared. But again, having this program that I'm in really helped me see what taking classes at college would be like, but also understanding there's more than just factors of taking classes. It comes to being social and joining clubs and being more than just an academically driven student. Being in this program helped me be a student, like an overall student of joining clubs and being more than just a student. So I feel like the transitional year program really benefited me as a person. So yes.
And was that transitional program in your high school or at Brandeis?
It's at Brandeis. So it's
at Brandeis.
Yes. So I got accepted into the MyraCraft transitional year program, which is through Brandeis.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
I can also hop in with that. I was a strong student in high school, but transitioning to college, the academics just hit different. Like you might have 1 or 2 classes in a day, but you'll have two textbook chapter readings per night of trying to keep up with work. And it's really about learning how to manage your time effectively and how you learn best. So that definitely was a lot of a large learning curve my first year, and also like exploring what classes interest you and what classes are exciting to you. So I majored in psychology, but I started off taking a lot of biology classes and just didn't really necessarily enjoy doing that kind of work. And that was also part of the transition. So not just is the school right, but is what you're studying right for you, and right for what you're actually interested in and want to learn about. And that there's a lot of different services on campus to help you go through those thought processes and work to improve how you're doing in classes and learning how to time manage and things like that. And I'd also say the professors are really helpful in that process, at least here at Brandeis. They're aware that you're not just here for the academics, but you're also here to be a well-rounded student, to take part in clubs and activities, to get involved with the community, and to really form those relationships in college that makes it part of the college experience.
And to hop into that, it's also this built-in mechanisms and how our academics work here at Brandeis that are extra tailored to making sure that every student can succeed here. So for example, every student at Brandeis has to take in their first year a writing class, right? So basically what happens after you get admitted to Brandeis, you will have to provide a writing sample. And then based on that, they will determine whether you can still work on your writing and work on your research, especially for Brandeis. So some first year students will go into a course called composition that really focus on preparing you for college level writing. If you have to write a research paper, for example, and then you can add an extra writing class afterwards, after you took the composition class. And, you know, that way everyone is on the same level when it comes to academic writing, which is super important. And also, again, we have all these resources. For example, in the library, we have an extra writing center that will work with you specifically and make sure that the work that you submit is the best you can do.
Great. Yeah. And I see we just got a question in the chat as well about accommodations and what types of accommodations are available to students with learning disabilities or learning differences. So we do have a really great care team on campus that is aware of you know, students who may have you know, learning disability, a learning difference, in which, you know, maybe they require extra time for examinations, you know, things like that. So usually that's done on a case-by-case basis with the student, and then with our office for student services, you know, in order for students to make sure that they're getting that tailored academic experience that they need, you know, in order to make sure that they're getting those specific accommodations. And also, you know, just in general as well, you know, all of the student support services on campus. So things like tutoring, you know, extra help with writing, you know, all of those services that are through our library system, those are open to all students as well. And it's definitely something that we really encourage all students to take advantage of. I'm sure for many of you all, you know, we're strong students, are strong students, you know, in high school, and may not have learned some of those study skills that you really need in order to be successful at the college level. You know, as Diana was talking about earlier, college really is just a completely different beast when it comes to that academic level and the level at which you need to be studying and doing research. So we have really great you know, librarians, upperclassmen, again, with our Roosevelt scholars, you know, who will help, you know, help students to be able to develop those study skills, develop those researching skills as well. If any of you want to jump in with some of your own experiences with some of those resources too, feel free.
Yeah. So one class I really struggled with was last semester finance. Like even now as a senior, you're still constantly learning about the best strategies to learn and to study and to succeed in different types of classes. And I think I used just about every academic support possible, from meeting with the professor during office hours, to utilizing our peer-to-peer free tutoring, to utilizing our TAs and their sessions. TA is a teaching assistant, which is typically either a grad student who has taken the class before to help you comprehend and understand the material. And you know, definitely was a struggle to work through, and sometimes, you know, tears of working through the material. But in the end, it all worked out, and those different opportunities and resources really helped make sure I was able to succeed to the level that I knew I could, but just needed some extra help along the way. And all of these resources are really over advertised almost in your classes to make sure that everyone knows what's available to them to utilize.
And I also think professors just really care about the students here at Brandeis. That's probably my favorite thing about Brandeis is our connections with our professors. Professors here are not trying to get you to fail. Professors are here to see you succeed and to help you learn as well. So in my experience, if something came up, if I got really sick, if a family member got really sick, professors have been very lenient, very understanding, and again, they want you to succeed.
Yes, I can definitely agree. I was living in office hours every single day last semester, just wanting to do well. And my my teaching assistant, and my professor also stayed hours for me, no matter like if it was getting late or if they were busy. They always made time to make sure I understood the material. We went over problems, and that really, really helped me, especially getting used to Brandeis courses. I really had a better understanding of how to approach certain topics and how to solve things differently in a way where I'm not used to. And definitely, I would just say go to office hours.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Veronica. Yeah, office hours, for those of you who may not be familiar with that term, these are times when your professor has dedicated, a time in their schedule to be in their office on campus and be available for their students. So office hours are something that's really important to take advantage of when you come to college. It's a great way to ask questions, ask questions about homework assignment, about an upcoming test or exam or project. And it's also a really great way, especially here at Brandeis, when we do have students do have such close relationships with their professors. It's a great time to get to know your professor, ask them about their research interests. If you are interested in research, you can ask them about how to get involved at a research center or research lab. They can give really great advice. If you're not sure what you want to major in, but you like this one class that particular professor teaches, they might be able to give you some guidance about what to think about for a major, or think about an upcoming internship or a career even. Our faculty are really excellent. They come to Brandeis specifically because they want to work with undergraduate students. So they work with students who are in your age group, and they really do see you all as their colleagues and co-collaborators, and like Yulia said, they want to see you succeed, they want to see you doing well. So definitely take advantage of all of that time that's available at whatever school you end up, whether it's Brandeis or another university. Stay tuned for things like office hours, definitely.
I actually want to jump in with a question. So for the students, so for many of our students that are here today, our juniors, this is their initial, their first exposure to a college. And so all of you are, well-adjusted college students. Like looking back, it wasn't, from a timeline perspective for you all, it wasn't that long ago that you were, in their seats. So I'm wondering if you can just maybe, if each of you has like one piece of advice that you could share with the students, because I know many of them are feeling overwhelmed at starting this, but like, what is your advice or like a key to, being successful over the next year?
My advice would be, my advice would be to take time for yourself. It really is an overwhelming process, but it will eventually work out. So along the way, just don't lose focus of what like the end goal is, and take that time to relax, decompress, like set aside time for yourself of this is not going to be a stressor on my day to day, and setting that boundary, because it can be so overwhelming and just eating you up inside.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Try to set yourself a schedule and stick to it. Don't try to do everything at once. That's what I did. I sat there on the 31st of December and worked for hours on my college jobs. Don't do that. That was not fun. It's a lot easier and a lot more effective at really helping you figure out what you want to say in your essays when you really start thinking about it early, work on it slowly, and don't try to do too much at once.
Yes, I definitely also want to say college is not a race, and you take your time. You will finish when you're ready. Do not think you have to graduate in 4 years or rush to do in 4 years. Take your time, do well in your grades. And that's just, I feel like because we're in a pandemic that we're just all behind, but it also gives us another opportunity to appreciate the time that we're in, especially with this pandemic. With college, going to college in a pandemic has really made me value my college experience better or more than I would if I wasn't in the pandemic. So that really helped me a lot. It's just understanding that things happen and that are out of our control and we can't control certain things, but that doesn't mean that we can't do well or perform well in the time that we have now.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Yulia, for putting that in the chat. Yeah, any other questions that students or anybody has?
Looks like we have a raised hand. Dina.
I guess I just wanted to ask, especially for Veronica and Yulia, as you know, international students of color, maybe how you feel connected with in the student body that is, I'm guessing, primarily white and American. So predominantly what you've done to make connections.
Well, I feel like because of the program I'm in, I know I keep talking about this program, but it's just so great. It really benefiting me. So yeah, the program that I'm in is actually from various backgrounds. My roommate was actually from the same city as me and the same city, the same high school, the same background. So I found a community within her, and she really helped me because she reminded me of home, actually, like especially being here, the environment and the surrounding is so different from what I'm used to at home. And it's really, really easy to lose yourself or question your worth or make you compare yourself to others. And having that support system and having my roommate with me helped me understand that I'm still here regardless. You know, I got to Brandeis, I'm here, I'm just as important as anyone else that's here at this institute. And that really helped me. And I feel like just finding the community, you know, it doesn't have to be so much people. It could be one person, it could be a professor, it could be a teacher, it could be a TA. It's just anyone that makes you feel like home or makes you feel comfortable is so important, especially with, you know, trying to find your community here. Also, you know, building relationships are so important. And I feel like I'm still trying every single day to find new people to meet and explore my options. And I feel like that's something that I love about Brandeis as well, is that you're always meeting new people. And that's very important when transitioning.
You put that very well, Veronica. I couldn't have said that better. I think for me as an international student, it was very beneficial that we actually had international orientation as well, where all of the international students came a week early before all of the American students arrived. And we went over very basic things like how to open an American bank account, how to get an American phone number, these kinds of things that kind of seem, you know, not super, you know, huge, but made such a big difference for me and trying to navigate my new life here in the United States. So that was super, super helpful for me. And also, of course, meeting the other international students was really great for me and being able to kind of relate with others that had similar experiences and similar emotions. But I was definitely anxious also when the domestic students arrived. But from my experience, students here at Brandeis have been always very curious and interested in learning about me and learning about my background and sharing perspectives and experiences. So I've always felt very included by all my friends.
Great. Yeah, I saw we have a couple more questions in the chat. Yeah, no, it's such an important question, thinking about what emotional support is needed, especially during the pandemic, but even, you know, outside of pandemic years. I think mental health is something that is such, it's just so prominent. I feel like on college campuses especially, and I think at this point in a lot of students' lives, you know, in your early 20s, that's when you start to really, or you should at least, you know, really be prioritizing your mental health. We do have really great mental health professionals on campus, so you can schedule a counseling appointment. It's free as a Brandeis student, so you don't need to pay for it. it. You can go see a counselor as often as you need to. I know students who go weekly, bi-weekly, monthly, maybe just checking in once a semester. Again, yeah, I don't know if any of you would feel comfortable, talking about your own experiences, but definitely, yeah, something very important and something that I would encourage you all to prioritize, especially when you get to college.
Yes, I can definitely speak on that behalf. I actually was so overwhelmed with college and just coming to college that I kind of forgot to take care of myself and my own well-being. There's so much resources here at Brandeis, and like they always want you to get help. It's always advocated to get help, no matter whatever you do, it's always they care for you. And going off on resources, I am in contact with BCC, and it's a counseling center. So you meet with them whenever you want. It's a therapist, it's staff, where you just talk about your emotions. And yeah, I actually I meet with them weekly, and you just talk about anything, and it makes you feel better. And that's one of the best supports that I've had during my Brandeis experience, is getting help that you need, because a lot of times people are scared to be vulnerable or to get help, but it's you need it. If you need it, go get it.
Yeah, anything else?
Alexa, can you answer Rachel's question in the chat? I'm not quite sure how to answer it.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, this may also be an example of something that's a bit case by case. So typically the international examinations, so things like TOEFL, IELTS, the other one, Duolingo, aren't meant to substitute the US standardized test, so SAT, ACT. Again, though, it's good to remember that we are test flexible. So students do not have to submit standardized tests if they don't feel as though that would be a good reflection of their academic abilities or academic achievement. So for example, in this case, if a student has gone to, an English speaking high school for a number of years, we can certainly waive the international testing requirements, so they wouldn't have to submit something like the TOEFL. And they could choose one of our testing options that's non-testing. So actually our third testing option is for students to submit a graded writing assignment. It's an analytical essay that we're looking for. This is actually one of our testing options that's become more and more popular every year. And we've had this testing option now for almost 10 years. So it's not new to our office, but it gives students the opportunity to submit an analytical paper that they would have already written in 11th or 12th grade. And this kind of gives us, a little bit of a glance at a student's academic ability, especially for students who feel as though standardized testing just isn't the best demonstration of that. So that would be something that I would encourage in the student's case. And then we can also, talk to students one-on-one and figure out a plan that would be best for a student on an individual basis as well. All right. Yeah, I mean, before we end, I'd love to end on like a nice note. What do you all do for fun? Because I know it's not all just, studying all the time. How do you kind of balance, I guess, that work, student life balance? Yeah.
Sleep. No, I'm kidding. It's a big one though. But clubs, lots of fun in clubs. For example, we have this really great club at Brandeis called Brandeis Mountain Club, and they took us skiing on Saturday in New Hampshire, and we paid $5 and the rest was subsidized from Brandeis. So that was a really fun experience. It made it a lot more accessible to students. Also for students who had never skied before, they had offered ski lessons included in that price. So it was really fun. I also really like to go into Boston. I have actually student card to the Boston Symphony Orchestra. And also Waltham is a really great place to go. Lots of good food, lots of boba, lots of ice cream. So that's what I like to do when I'm not studying or sleeping.
Yes. Oh, sorry, Diana. I just wanted to pick up and say, yeah, there's so much fun things to go on. Last semester, I was a part of Zen Zone where we did meditation, and we also went on a retreat. It was so cool. It was so fun. I met so many new people. Also, one thing that I like doing if I'm not studying or sleeping, like Yulia, I love to go into the lounges in the different dorms within my quad. So I'm located in Marcel, and I'm in DeVroy, and we don't have like lounges that are as cool as Shapiro. So I would go to Shapiro Lounge, and that's when I'll meet everyone in that hall, in that dorm, in that quad. It's just so fun because there's always a way to meet new people, and you see new faces everywhere. And it's like, once you go into the lounge, you meet new friends, and then you go get lunch and you see, oh, that's a familiar face. And that's how friendships are made. And I feel like just going into different lounges and different halls are one way to really, make new friends, because that's very important. Your first semester is having that group.
Yeah, one of my favorite things to do to relax and unwind is go with my friends to the game room on campus, where it's either just to play ping pong, or there's also all of the different like gaming consoles there. Always down for a game of Mario Kart, or like Yulia said, heading into Boston and headed into Waltham and the surrounding areas, and just taking a step off campus, being reminded of like what the life is going on outside of just when you're surrounded with just people your own age, and reminding that there's a whole large world out there to explore.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys so much. Yeah, thank you, Diana, Yulia, and Veronica. I really appreciate you guys. And thank you to all of our participants today. You guys have been fantastic and asked such great questions, really kept the conversation going. So thank you all. And yeah, I'll pass it over to Jillian, to close this out.